Hello everyone, my name's Ozimitsu and today I'm finally bringing you the next episode of my Evolution Solution series. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the series, it is when I compare an evolved Pokemon with its unevolved self with Eviolite. You can watch my first ever episode of this over here, where I discuss Spritzee and Aromatisse. This episode was in great demand and I'm pleased I'm finally releasing it. It is Porygon 2 versus Porygon Z. Arguably, Chansey and Porygon 2 are the best Eviolite users. I hope to revisit Chansey and improve that video someday. Anyway, let's just get right into it. Let's start off with Porygon 2. It evolved from Porygon when traded holding an upgrade. This Pokemon is a right annoyance to evolve due to its evolution method, because if you want Porygon Z, you have to trade it again, but we'll speak more about that later on. Porygon 2 is a pure normal type, meaning it is weak to fighting, it's immune to ghost, it has no resistances, and it's damaged normally by the rest of the types. It's not the best typing, but it certainly isn't the worst, especially as an Eviolite user. It being damaged normally by dark type moves like Knockoff is pretty handy. The weakness to fighting is the only thing you have to worry about, and although a very common typing, it being the only thing Porygon has to worry about is a pretty good trade-off in my opinion. What I love about the Porygon line is their versatility and their differences as they evolve. Porygon 2 has 3 potential abilities just like its predecessor Porygon. One of its primary abilities are Trace. Trace changes into the ability of the opponent. Trace cannot copy Trace, Multi-type, Illusion, Flower Gift, Imposter or Stance Change. However, Trace can copy Wonder Guard. In double and triple battles, as well as horde encounters, Trace will randomly copy an adjacent opponent's ability. If all opponents have abilities that cannot be traced, then Trace will activate when exposed to an opponent that has a traceable ability. To be honest, this can be both a blessing and a curse. It totally depends on what you go up against. For me personally, this is too much of a risk, and I wouldn't recommend running this at all, even if it can turn out to be useful in some scenarios, especially in a game that relies heavily on luck anyway. Its second ability is Download, which again can be both a blessing and a curse. Download raises either the attack stat or the special attack stat by one stage depending on the foe's lowest current defensive stat. For example, it will raise special attack if the foe's current special defense is lower than its current defense stat. If the foe's defense and special defense are equal, the special attack stat is increased. During a double battle however, Download will add the 2 opposing Pokemon stats and calculate the lowest stat between both. Again, whilst this ability is great, I feel it relies too much on luck or you hoping to go up against a certain Pokemon. It's like you have to wish for a certain Pokemon to go up against. If for example you're running a special set and your attack is raised, the ability is rendered useless. I'm not saying the ability is terrible, I'm only saying it's again a bit of a risk and relies on the luck factor a bit too much. Running an Eviolite Pokemon is a big enough risk anyway, and although Knockoff or Trick won't cripple it completely, if it does lose a potential for another held item coupled with an ability that raises the stat that you're not going to benefit from, you can see yourself getting into deep trouble. Its hidden ability is Analytic. If the user targets a Pokemon that has already acted this turn, the power of the user's move is increased by 30%. This is probably the best ability to run. However, again I'm torn. A conventional Eviolite user does not rely on offense, but more its buffing defenses. So Analytic, although matches Porygon's stats, as it's more likely to go last, or not first at the very least, your EV investment is probably not going to be invested in special attack or attack to really benefit anyway. If it were up to me, I'd choose either, completely depending on which set I'm going for. I'll be going into a bit more detail about this when I review its potential movesets. Looking at Porygon 2's stats, they're pretty beastly. Whilst being pretty defensively bulky thanks to Eviolite, it still has a decent special attack stat, so if you wanted to run some offense you can totally do that and pack a punch. Now with Porygon 2, due to its versatility, there are so many movesets you can opt for, and I struggle keeping this portion concise, but here we go. The first set is pretty conventional, yet a very effective set, but you can still play around with the EV spread. What I was thinking was run Porygon 2 with Analytic ability with Charge Beam, which has a 70% chance to raise your special attack, which can be pretty handy. Opt for Toxic to really stall your opponent out, and also Psyshock. So if you're going up against a specially defensive wall like Chansey or Blissey, it doesn't really matter. You have a move where the damage is based on your special attack, which is pretty high, but it'll take into account your opponent's physical defense as opposed to their special defense, and you're going to do a hell of a lot of damage. Of course, with a few fighting dark type Pokemon, a fairy type move would have been nice, but overall a pretty solid move to opt for. Finally, running Recover to sustain yourself a little bit longer is a great option. You're healing up to 50% of your HP, and considering your opponent on average will be doing about a quarter or even a third of damage to your health, healing up can be really beneficial. The EV spread I'd run is 252 in HP, 252 in physical defense, and the rest in special defense. This is to really benefit from the extra bulk in its defenses thanks to Eviolite. Charge Beam is purely playing on the luck factor, hoping hoping for a raise in its special attack, and of course because there's no speed investment, the analytic ability can come into play and raise the attack of the move you're using if you go last. This is more down to strategy more over luck, which is why in this instance its hidden ability is the best ability to opt for. If you really wanted to play on the whole going last strategy, you may want to consider running the sassy or quiet nature. This works perfectly because you're getting that 10% decrease in your speed whilst having a 10% increase in either your special attack or special defense. It's totally up to you which nature to possess. I mean personally, if you're running charge beam and you want to go for pure luck, boost your special defenses by opting for the sassy nature. If you're all about taking out as much as you can with the luck factor, go for the quiet nature. The only problem with that however is if you're planning on going all guns blazing, surely Porygon Z would be a better option. It can be argued however that although this may be correct, that Porygon 2 can hit almost as hard while staying in longer, whereas Porygon Z will have to OHKO anything in its path, and if it doesn't, it's pretty much useless. The only problem I have with this set is Taunt can really hinder your momentum, and to a certain degree Dark type Pokemon can maul you out, especially considering one of the damage dealing moves you're running is a Psychic type attack. Of course in doubles it is a different story. You could run Aromatisse as your ally, and then you're protected with the Aroma Veil ability, and of course Fairy type attacks to shut down those Dark types. Either way, this set can work for both doubles and singles. Another set to opt for is similar to the last one with a few tweaks. Running the Modest Nature for extra buff in your special attack is pretty handy. Run either the Trace or Analytic ability, Ice Beam for good coverage overall and taking down those pesky dragon types. Tri Attack for ultimate hacks. It has an 80 base power plus stab, which is really nice, but the best part about it is its secondary effect. It has a 20% chance to either burn, paralyze or freeze your opponent. From the research I've done, I found that most strategy guides dictate that there is a 6.3% chance to inflict either status condition on your opponent. All of the status conditions are pretty handy. Freeze hacks so you can have the opportunity to recover if you need to. Paralysis can help you out if it means your opponent will potentially miss a turn, although as their speed is decreased it may potentially negate your analytic ability. And finally burn, so if you're going up against a physical attacker, that decrease in the attack can be pretty useful. Your bulk is already so high, so the extra burn possibility really is a cherry on top.
Unless you go up against a good Conkeldurr, then you're screwed.
Right, let's move on to Porygon Z. We don't really need to look at its typing because it is still a normal type, so it still retains its ghost immunity and weakness to fighting. Porygon Z evolved from Porygon 2 if traded whilst holding a dubious disc. Seriously, what a pain, you need to trade your Porygon with a held item to evolve it into Porygon 2, and then again with another item to fully evolve it? Seriously, what a pain in the grass. I'd be so tempted to just keep a Porygon with Eviolite, and yes, I do mean Porygon, not even Porygon 2. With that aside, Porygon Z has some pretty impressive stats. It has a good amount of special attack and decent speed, which makes it a semi-decent sweeper, so comparing its stats with its predecessor, it's pretty tough. This is why people argue that Porygon 2 is the best Eviolite user next to Chansey. Anyway, here is where it gets interesting. When Porygon 2 evolves into Porygon Z, they do have a bit of variation in their abilities, unlike Chansey and Blissey who share the same abilities. One of Porygon Z's primary abilities are adaptability, which essentially increases stab from 1.5 times to 2 times, which is why I said in my top 10 Eviolite list that Tri Attack is Porygon Z's bread and butter. The other ability Porygon Z possesses is Download, which we've already spoken about, and of course its hidden ability still remains as Analytic, but with a decent 90 base speed stat, this may cause some problems, unless of course you opt for a speed decreasing nature, no investment in speed, or you use Trick Room if you think you are faster, but that seems like a lot of unnecessary setting up when you could just make use of your speed stat instead. For me personally, in this instant, I'd opt for either adaptability for the extra stab with Tri Attack or stick with Analytic. In terms of the movesets, there is a bit of variation, but you don't have the bulk. Agility to increase your speed, Tri Attack coupled with the adaptability ability, Ice Beam for good reliable damage, and T-Bolt. The EV investment would be 252 in special attack, 252 in speed, and the rest in hit points, with the Modest Nature for the 10% buff in its special attack of course. Another set I think that may work is as followed. Max investment in speed and special attack again, running Charge Beam, Psyshock, Trick, and Recover with Life Orb. But if you don't run Trick that is of course, perhaps you can go for the gimmicks and hold a Choice Scarf and lock your opponent in if you do want to have Trick. If you do want to opt for the Life Orb, you could add another move in there, it's completely up to you. The EV set would be again max special attack and speed. Normally, I'd say here that the final evolutionary stage Pokemon has the edge over the Eviolite user because it has the versatility to use an item slot, but there are not many choices with this one. You do have some options at least. Porygon Z would definitely take a lot of damage from a choice Pokemon or even a super effective hit. You're looking at getting O-Code, which is why you have to rely on your speed to attack first, so maybe even a Choice Scarf option right there is possible. But even with max speed, EV investment and a Choice Scarf, it totally depends on which mon you are going up against, and of course priority moves and Pokemon with the Prankster ability can really mess you up. With Porygon Z you need to attack, wreck as much as you can until your opponent retaliates, and then it's GG. I mean, you could set up in a way where you've taken out as much as you can and leave the rest for your teammates to clean up the rest. Overall, both Pokemon are pretty solid choices, but if it were up to me, I'd choose...
3 days later.
3
3 weeks later.
Um...
Many months later.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
I'm sorry, I just cannot choose. Both options are just so good. I mean, Porygon 2 has great bulk and access to a plethora of moves. It is a perfect set of Pokemon, but then it's shut down by Taunt. Then we have Porygon Z with a monstrous special attack, and the sweeping capabilities are amazing, but then Priority Mach Punch and it's GG. So overall, it doesn't matter. If you want a defensive, assistive, supportive Pokemon, opt for Porygon 2. If you want an offensive sweeper, opt for Porygon Z. It's completely up to you. Thank you everyone for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on this video as that really helps me out. Follow me on all my social media platforms which I've put in the description below. Subscribe so you're notified when I upload next. I upload every Tuesday and Friday. But I'm Ozymitsu. Until next time.